has tested positive for signatures of sarin.
The United States revealing new evidence against the Syrian government,
claiming the toxic gas sarin was used in a deadly attack in Damascus.
Bashar al-Assad now joins a list of Adolf Hitler and Saddam Hussein who've used these weapons in time of war.
Meanwhile, members of Congress considered the new evidence
as they weigh the risks of military action in Syria.
The case that we are looking at is going to be probably one of the most complex for members of Congress to resolve.
The latest on the situation with Syria tops Fox 11 News at 9. Good evening and thank you for joining us. The Obama administration continued today to make its case for military action against Syria.
As we mentioned, top officials provided new evidence that sarin gas was used in a deadly attack in Damascus. The U.S. says more than 1,400 civilians, including several hundred children, were killed in the August 21st attack. Sarin gas affects the nervous system. It can take the form of either liquid or gas and can be delivered in missiles, bombs, or rockets. The gas has been internationally outlawed. Kerry says the evidence adds to a growing body of proof that Syria's government staged the attack. But the UN still says it's waiting for its own proof. Katie Murray brings us balanced coverage.
The Obama administration is taking its case to Congress, releasing details of independent evidence collected from the site of an alleged chemical weapons attack in Syria on August 21st.
Blood and hair samples that have come to us through an appropriate chain of custody from East Damascus, from first responders. It has tested positive for signatures of sarin.
But the United Nations says not so fast, urging world leaders to wait until its investigation is complete before any country takes action.
That the United Nations mission is uniquely capable of establishing in an impartial and credible manner the facts of any use of chemical weapons based directly on evidence collected on the ground.
The UN won't give a timeline for how long the investigation could take. Congress won't return to Capitol Hill for another week, which means quick action isn't likely. No worries, says John Kerry.
The president believes, and I hope we will prove to the world, that we are stronger as a nation, our democracy is stronger, when we respect the rights of the Congress to also weigh in on this.
It will likely be a spirited debate. Congress appears divided, but for once, not along party lines. I'm Katie Murray reporting.
And today, members of Congress voiced their opinions about a potential military strike. Given today's claims, some say they're in favor, while others insist no amount of proof will convince them to approve of a strike. We have multiple views.
I would ask John Kerry, do you think that it's less likely or more likely that chemical weapons will be used again if we bomb Assad?
I'm still very skeptical about the president's proposal. It is not clear to me that we know what the results of this attack will be. And I think most of us agree that in limited circumstances, military responses are okay, provided that we have significant international support.
It is hard to walk away from the information that is on the table and not come to the conclusion that the Assad regime has used chemical weapons.
As it stands now, Congress will not begin debating a military strike against Syria until they return to Washington on September 9th.
As we've mentioned, the UN is waiting for test results before confirming chemicals were used in the attack in Syria. Those tests are now being expedited. Today, the UN asked the head of its chemical weapons team to speed up analysis of samples collected in Syria this past week. The samples are being sent to labs around Europe to check for traces of poison gas like sarin. Despite the accelerated testing, still no word on when those results might come back. And as the world waits to see if Congress will approve a strike on Syria, many are looking to U.S. history for clues on what they will decide. President Obama says he'd like to see a narrow and limited strike performed. How have such strikes played out in the past? Fox's Elizabeth Cran takes a closer look at the outcomes of past limited strikes the U.S. has made.
Americans are waiting to see if Congress will support President Obama's request to attack Syria. At the same time, it's hard not to look at administration's past and what retaliations took place. Starting almost 30 years ago, the U.S. bombed Beirut during Lebanon's civil war under the Reagan administration. 1 month later, Shiite Muslim suicide bombers struck Marine barracks in that country, and more than 200 Marines were killed. Years later, the same administration ordered a bombing raid in Libya. Leader Muammar Gaddafi survived and then later admitted his involvement in the Pan Am plane explosion over Lockerbie, Scotland. Under the Clinton administration, officials ordered attacks on al-Qaeda camps in Afghanistan and a factory in Sudan, a country that supported al-Qaeda. The radical group retaliated by attacking the USS Cole in Yemen, followed by the deadly September 11th attacks in 2001. These, among wars involving President George Bush, are all incidents weighing on this administration's strategy, which right now has no timeline.
The rationale for the military response the president has requested is as powerful today and will be as powerful, if not more powerful, each day.
Some lawmakers say we can keep U.S. national security strong if an attack is done correctly and with proper international cooperation.
Every time the United States is active decisively, there's no retaliation because we retaliate against retaliation.
Keep in mind, while many of these lawmakers are outspoken for a full debate before any U.S. action has taken place, that doesn't mean they're on board with an attack. In Washington, Elizabeth Pran, Fox News.
We have more information about the situation in Syria on our website, fox11online.com. There you'll find an interactive timeline beginning with the alleged attacks. You'll find that attached to the featured story on our homepage.